Hola, bienvenidos a Oye Cinema Club. My name is Don Dino Spacini, and I'll be one of your hosts for this evening. We're going to be talking about the movie Flow. It's an animated movie, came out in 2024. It was from Latvia. It won the Golden Globes. And I had seen like a quick little clip of it, and that's why I picked it for the movie we're reviewing today, but I'm not doing it by myself. I got my pals, my friends. It's like we're all in a boat together, just trying to survive. We got Steve Des TV, Jason Eccles, and Michaela Myers. All right, so let's just get into it real quick. It's not a long movie. We're gonna get in and out of this, I think. So, first impressions. Let's start with Steve. What do you think, man?
Boy, oh boy, why me first? Okay, I was hoping to not be first, yeah, let's talk positives. So, movie, great animation. I feel like they did an amazing and terrific job, uh, especially making out of every character. I mean, every character did feel real, but of course, the main one, the cat, which I don't know the cat's name necessarily. Uh, the cat was amazing. It was very realistic. I'm a person that loves cats, so I am assuming that people that loves cats will definitely enjoy this movie. People that love animals will enjoy this movie, but definitely people that love cats because it gets you more attached. Of like, poor cat, please find your home. Please get back. Uh, Overall, just for the sake, again, for the sake of Cinema Club, I'm just like, this is a movie that, I could have watched. I don't know. Dina would have told me, hey, on the side, like, hey, watch this movie. And I'm like, cool. But like for Cinema Club, I'm intrigued to see what my colleagues here have to say because I was just like, yo, why are we reviewing this movie right now? But we'll see what the rest of the gang has to say. But those were my first impressions, initial thoughts.
Okay, okay, fair enough. Michaela, how about you? First impression? Had you seen this
Um,
before?
I had not seen it before. I'd heard of it, and it wasn't on my list of something urgent that I wanted to see. It was, like, oh, maybe if I get around to watching it, but I didn't. I probably wouldn't have picked to watch it on my own, but I loved it, and I really think that it's just a triumph in filmmaking. I was really excited to see it. I was captivated right away. I was engaged the whole time. I was just stunned at how much story was happening yet it being so simple. And so I was really excited. I really loved it. I was very moved. It's the perfect runtime for me. I'm a 90-minute girl. I like a 90-minute movie, get in and out. And I liked that it was like an hour 20. It didn't overstay its welcome. It's a winner for me.
Nice. Jason Eccles, I know you had seen this movie already. Did you get a chance to watch it again, or you were like, I got it?
So, on the contraire, mon frere, I had not seen this before,
Oh,
but I did want to see it when I was in Detroit. The Detroit Film Theater was going to play this, and I read the synopsis and that there was no talking in the movie. And I was going to like go with like my brother or my sister or somebody or whatever. And I was like, oh, no one's going to want to sit through a silent film with me, like around the holidays. So I decided not to. And I was like, I will catch it eventually. I didn't know it was going to come to me this quickly. And I'm actually really glad it did. I kind of regret not taking my family to go see this movie, man. Like this was one of the most charming silent films I've watched in a decade, and it's really really good. Like it's an animal film, but you can do so much more with I mean we've seen animal films. You can do so much more with it because it's animation and it's whatever you dream up. But the animals all have personalities, oftentimes like animals do, and this movie just hit me on so many levels. It just kind of felt like the end of the world a little bit. Like I kept thinking about like Noah's Ark and Noah's flood and like the world being destroyed. And then I started thinking about like, because this whole movie sort of feels like a meditation because of the pace it takes, right? So it leaves you to kind of like think to your own devices what's coming next. And then I started thinking a lot about, I'm like, okay, so I think what they're trying to say with this movie is that even though all these species are against each other, they're trying to eat each other in the wild, they're like, they don't get along and all this stuff. When it's survival time, like you put together a team or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like you all like try to like help preserve each other in the final moments, and like, hopefully your truth comes out. But and this is also the animal kingdom, and you can see these little storylines and whatnot. It's beautiful, man. I mean, I'm going to have some questions for you guys too, but I really like. It's just the story of it for me, and like I said, for me, this movie just sort of feels like a very warm meditation on like a lot of things.
Mhm.
Very cool. Yeah, all right, I'll go real quick. Yeah, I hadn't seen it. Again, I saw the animation just looks so cool. The animals especially seem to be more not aqua colors, but not your typical animation cartoon drawing. It
Yeah.
seemed, and that's what really intrigued me, and I'm very happy to watch it, because movies, cartoons, animations like this, and the Spider-Man universe one really shows how you can be more than just Pixar, right? Or
Mhm.
DreamWorks, like everything just going real computer generated,
Mhm.
instead of like, hey, we can, or Miyamoto, right? Studio Ghibli, like there are all these
Mhm.
different styles that are still around. They just don't necessarily get the accolades from like the regular theater goers. It's like, oh, it got nominated for something, right? That's how you kind of find out about it. So yeah, I was invested. I was like, ooh, I knew it was like a foreign film. I was like, I guess we'll have to read subtitles. And then I was like, okay, any moment now they're gonna little cat's gonna start talking. And then I was like, well, I guess not. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I was for sure like, oh, this is really interesting. And it gets trippy also because I was like,
Mhm.
how realistic are we staying? I mean, realistic in the sense of the animals and the world and all that. And then you have this kind of weird whale alien kind of creature that's
Mhm.
recurring, and then kind of floating into the skies with bubbles and all that. Same thing. I was like Noah's Ark because there was clearly buildings and there had been humans, and like okay, the house she would go to had like drawings of cats and stuff like that. So so many questions, but yeah, like a minute and a half, an hour and a half, I think, is right around the time of a silent film. Like this is
Mhm.
Madagascar, yet like artistic, and but I guess I've never actually seen Madagascar all the way through, so I don't. I'm like, it's like a Chris Rock less Madagascar. Is that right? You've seen that one? Great. All right, so that's it. I enjoyed it for sure. Let's get into one of the cinematic shots. That's the first thing that came to my mind because it's amazing. Again, with these cartoons and animation, they have camera work, which you don't think of when think of animation and cartoon. But they were following that cat. Like if you had a camera
Yes.
on the arm,
A
or
steady
even
cam.
yeah,
Mhm.
Steadicam or the crane. They had crane shots, not just crane shots, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, this looks like an actual camera movement. This looks like from a different point of view, like throughout that. So bringing that up, talk about like kind of your favorite scene, if you had any, or sequence, right? Or camera movement, color, like the water, like water in animation is so hard to do also. So if you guys had like a mind-blowing sequence or a cinematic one, uh, let's hear about it.
I have one. Okay, so you talked about like the camera, which is
Yeah.
so fascinating to me when I do see like an animated movie. Like we went to go see Moana 2 recently, and I was like, the way that the camera is moving is like the directing is amazing because you forget that it's an animated film sometimes because of the way like the camera is moving. And I had that same thing when I was watching this. I was like, oh my God, like these are gorgeous camera angles and camera shots. But it's not a camera. It's, it's different because it's animated. But there was, I loved the part at the beginning when the flood was first coming and it like follows the cat from behind and the cat's like in the water and it's kind of, the camera's kind of in the water and coming up out of the water and you're seeing the cat like struggling because you really felt like you're moving with the water and moving with the flood and like feeling that panic and the rush and just this like feeling of like chaos all happening. So I loved the way that was done. And then this other moment that I loved, which is kind of a similar feeling, was when the bird picked the cat up. It was like maybe half an hour in, 20 minutes in, and it lifted the cat up and then the camera moved with the cat up and it was like this really long take. It was so long. And I, at the moment, I was like, wait a second, has this whole movie been one take? And then I realized it hadn't been, but I was like, I was so swept up in it and the movement. And I was just thinking how fabulous it was. It was like the way it lifted up and then it followed down as if it was like on a crane or a drone or something. It was just like all of the little attention to the detail in making it feel like a movie that was shot while not taking you out of the story at all. And it wasn't like so flashy that it was distracting. It was really immersed me in the story. So that was fantastic. But those were two moments in which I was just stunned by the way the camera moved.
I'm gonna piggyback on that because I was actually gonna mention the one that the cat gets picked up by the bird and stuff. But I'm also gonna mention, especially I would say towards more in the beginning, I guess, where every time the cat was just behaving like a cat, being afraid, going acting that way, like I felt very connected because it was like they got so much of the movements down and like that's so difficult. And then also when the cat is just like swimming, every time the cat was like in the water, to me that was extremely impressive because I was
Looked
like,
just like a cat. It was crazy.
yeah. And also you could see at the same time like how the cat was like factoring also decisions of like, oh well, there's a bird coming, well I guess I'm just gonna throw myself back and then got saved by the fish and all that. So it just like, yeah, I would say like every moment like I was focused mainly on the cat, kind of like either interacting with the world, being like afraid or not knowing, not sure if trusting this animal it's the right thing. And also when the cat was like in danger, like swimming and stuff like that, like it was quite impressive to me.
Very cool.
I will triple back off of everything you guys just said. I did think something that was super impressive, and I remember thinking to myself, I thought it to myself out loud. Um, the scene where the cat it's about to get, it's very early on. The cat is about to get run over by all like the bench, the antelopes and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of moving a little bit, like out of the way, like because I was at that point. I realized I'm already locked in pretty deep to this cat's perspective because I felt so small on the ground, and like I could like hear the rumbling of the antelopes. I was like, man, this would have been really great in a theater.
Yeah.
This would have been a really great movie in the theater because the sound is so simple, but it's all like sounds like real stuff. And that perspective of being in a cat, in a cat's frame, it's a scary world out there, man. But cats kind of have superpowers. Yeah, I don't know, like so that right there already pulled me in. I was along on the ride the whole way,
Yeah.
physically. Like I kind of forgot that I was watching a movie, and I was just like trapped in the story for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go even a little further back, just because it was when I noticed it so early that I was like, that's when I wrote it down. It's the initial tracking of the cat, and he like jumps up and on the roof, and the glass is broken, and it follows the cat going through the crack of the broken glass with the reflection of the glass toward to the to the camera, and then through the glass. And I was like, well, this is a camera shot. This is like 1917, right, or whatever that movie is, just doing a non-stop tracking shot.
Yeah.
So I'll go with that one for sure. Um, Real quick, before we get into what's the meaning of this movie, I was thinking, do you have a favorite animal or a favorite trinket in the that we see that the lemur has? And with favorite animal, do you see yourself as one of the animals? Which one is it? And for bonus, is there someone in the group that you see as one of the other animals? Bum, bum, bum. I'll go
hilarious.
first just because you might. I'm going with capybara, which carpincho in Paraguay, we call them carpincho. And yeah, they're just so goofy. And that capybara was just like, I'm just doing me. Like, world is ending, and capybara is just asleep. Like, like for the first half of the movie, capybara is asleep, like in the boat, like kind of snoring. And fun fact, all the animals were recorded. The director and stuff actually wanted sound, and they went to record the capybara and had to tickle the capybara to like get it to do sounds. That's how lazy the capybara is, and it just didn't match the personality. So they ended up using a baby camel sound for capybara. That was the only animal that they couldn't really use their sound. So anyway, capybara is for me. And I'm gonna say Steve is the crane because he's the leader of our team, and he always steers us in the right direction. Anyone else can go.
Okay, I have thoughts on the animals. I'm trying to keep track of your question because you had a lot of elements to it. But okay, so John and I, my partner and I, we were talking about this today when we took our walk. Because I mean, he loved the movie maybe even more than me. He was like almost in tears. He loved it so much, and I loved it too. But we were both like talking about the animals, and about halfway during the movie, John was like, "Oh, I get it. The animals each represent something different." And I hadn't thought of it like this, but I thought it was interesting. He said he thought the cat was fear, the lemur was intelligence, the bird was wisdom, and the capybara was laziness. Although later he changed the capybara. He said, I think it's more of like a maternal vibe because it's like a caretaker. It became like a caretaker. But I thought that was very interesting.
Right away, it was a caretaker. It got the bananas off the tree and went right back to sleep.
I think he, it was like later he was like, oh, I think that's what it is, But I agreed with him about the other three. I was like, oh, that's really interesting.
And the dog?
And the dog, he said innocence. Innocence is what he said. The dog is like innocence. And I thought that was really interesting because fear is like our primal human, like one of our primal human emotions. And I think we all can relate to it. So it being from the perspective of the cat, it felt, I think the easiest is like a human to connect to in a way, because it feels like in the situation of like a flood, like you would just be out for survival, So I think I related probably most to the cat. John said he related most to the dog, but I related the most to the cat. I loved them all, though. I was like, at different times, I was loving them all for different reasons. And I loved how they all had like individual personalities, but that at the same time, this film does something really unique, which you never see with other animal films, which is they're still animals. Like they're not animals that are like human-like. They're animals that are animal-like. And I loved that their personalities were still like the personality of a cat, I thought that was really special. But I think I would relate to most of the cat, although that's difficult. Yeah.
I can see the cat.
All right.
I guess for me, I like the golden retriever the best because his loyalty was outstanding. Even though it's like, we started off. I felt like the golden retriever was the first one that realized, hey, we got to stick together, or and he feels like he was the first one to sort of put everything together. And then, I liked him all throughout, but he really nailed it on the head for me when like all the other dogs went off to chase the bunny at the end. And the
Yeah.
golden retriever, he was like, "What are you doing?" And in the bark he gave them, like, "Come back!"
Mhm.
Yeah.
It communicated exactly what was happening in that dog world. And he got back to holding the rope before the boat fell. And I was like, wow, that is absolutely terrific. His loyalty and his concern for his comrades was incredible. And I was like, that almost brought a tear to my eye. I've loved that dog.
And
Love
if
that
you
dog.
paid attention, real quick, before maybe you pick who you were, at the very beginning when the dogs first appear, he's the first one to notice the cat and doesn't
Mhm.
bark.
Oh, I don't think I realized that he doesn't bark.
Yeah, he was just more like, kind of interested in the cat and, the kind of friendliness or, innocence. Like that dog was just like, oh, like who is this type of thing, and didn't
Yeah.
bark. It was the other dogs, and then it kind of followed last, but more so of like, where are we going? Like, so I like if John brought up the innocence thing, about it. That that
Yeah, I thought
dog
that was
was
like an
just
interesting assessment because I was just so I was just just lost in the film, so I wasn't really thinking
yeah.
of it in terms like that. I was just like following the story, and he was like, "Oh, this is what," I was like, "Oh, that's an interesting
It's a
way to look
terrific
at these
assessment.
characters." Yeah, it really
So
is.
my
I mean,
thing
honestly.
is, for the sake of argument, let's say John has all those nailed; those are all correct. What would the other pack of dogs do you think would be? Because like if the one dog is innocence, what would the pack of dogs be?
Yeah, that's an
Toto
interesting question. I
police.
don't know. Police. I
You
mean,
said
because
the
they're all
police.
they're kind of idiots, right? Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. They're kind of dopey
Oh, oh,
idiots.
oh, oh, oh! Mob mentality, right? Like that's
Yeah,
like,
like
because
them
then
going to
you have
chase
the
the
different.
bunny, them sticking
Yeah,
together. Yeah,
and like one starts and then it's like, yeah, I guess we all gotta go. Like not
yeah,
thinking. Whereas, yeah, you have the innocence of like, because then had the moment when they kind of went by the first time around, and like what would be interesting is how did they get separated, right? How did that one dog get separated from the bunch, right?
right.
And then we passed by it, and the dog had the moment where he could go and rejoin, but was kind of like, no, I'm not part of it.
And
Similar
that's
with the
like
lemurs.
the dog's like journey, like because they each it's like they each individually as animals had their journey in the movie, but then they also had their like collective journey. And I guess that would be
Yeah,
like the dog is like the innocent, but it had like become also it had found its role within the group.
yeah.
So actually, I was just reading that in the sequel, Flow 2, even more flowy, it is going to follow the perspective of the dog and the lemur.
Even
So
more flowy.
It's
yes,
the prequel or in between. It's what happened to the doggy before he got saved the second time. All right. Any
Even
other
more.
animal thoughts?
Yeah, I guess you could have like little side stories of like what happened to the other animals when you're off screen, and um, I felt bad about the lemur too. Just a quick thought. I felt bad about the lemur situation because the cat went and he's looking for the lemur, looking for the lemur. Like, oh, you're not. Where's my buddy, the
Yeah.
lemur? And then there's a certain level of sadness in me too, because I'm like, wait, is that the lemur? And he's just choosing to ignore him now that he's around his own kind again. Like, I'm ignoring you because this is my own
Well,
kind. And I'm like, oh, please don't let that be who you are, lemur. And I feel like they kind of play you like that. And then the lemur comes out and like, oh yeah, cool, lemur, awesome. You guys are a
um,
crew.
the when I thought when you said you felt sad for the lemur, I thought you were gonna say when those dogs broke his mirror. Like
Oh
that's
yeah, I did feel sad when
I
yeah.
did feel
that's
sad for them.
when my heart dropped, because it was that, and then talk about mob mentality and like only thinking about yourself. Cat Pro had caught so many fish and was kind of dealing them out, and still had some. I don't think, and all of a sudden the one dog's just like ate all of it, and then the other one came and like licked the rest of what was left, and the cat's like, the fuck, So like that, like again, that's the mob mentality, and just like so narrow-minded.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so
We're just,
interesting.
yeah, a hive mind.
Yeah. The fish was like, when the cat wasn't getting the fish at first, I was like, don't worry, this cat's gonna get its fish eventually. I'm not worried about it. John was like flipping out. He was like, because he thought the cat was so cute. We both did. And he was like, get that baby some fish. Get that. He was like stressed out. Like during the movie, he was like, no, poor baby needs some fish. I was like, it's gonna get its fish. I promise you. It's gonna get.
I'll tell you, at one point though, I was like, "Oh, this cat just needs this." I'm sorry, I was like, "Cat might just need to die." It kept falling into the water. It kept. I was like,
I thought that cat was going to
curiosity.
die a couple of times.
I thought
I
it had its
agree.
9 lives. It had its 9 lives. I thought the same thing too. I was like, it kept falling in the water. It kept surviving after being in the water for so long.
Was I the only one saying, poor fish, poor fish?
I actually did
Yeah.
have that thought when it had the pile of the colorful fish. I was like, oh, look at all those beautiful fish.
Oh, because they're colorful, huh?
Yeah. All right. So this is where I guess there's so many messages, but it gets trippy, and it's like, so my question is, what happened to the crane, right? And we kind of already talked about your partner coming up with this crazy amazing idea that I really like also, but what happened to the crane? Man, when they broke that crane's freaking wing, also, I was like, oh, so sad. And I was like, come on, little cat, break it back into place. Put
Yeah.
it back into place. I was like, that's what would have happened in like Madagascar or like a Pixar movie. You'd have the animals like doing medical stuff that clearly they wouldn't have. Instead, it was
Right.
like, yep, no, I got a limp wing. I can't do what I can do anymore. But knew how to work the wind, right? That was the thing with the sail. It was like, I
Yeah.
get how wind works because that's what they have to use to move themselves. So yeah,
Well, here's
what
my
happened
question:
to the crane?
Why did the crane do what he did initially? Why did he protect? Like, why did he go against, like, the leader of the pack for this, little run?
It's interesting. That's an interesting question. I feel like the simple answer is that all of these animals were like the outcast, or were the othered, or were the runt, or whatever. They obviously didn't have the pack or the group survive. The cat seemed to be like this. To me, I saw this as like a post-human world in the future. Like this whale was obviously like a whale, but had evolved.
Yeah,
So you could say that this is an alien planet, but to me, I thought it was like very futuristic, and the statues of the cat, statues of the human, and the drawings. It seemed like maybe this cat had an owner at some point, and this human had
yeah,
died. Maybe had been one of the last humans. So this cat belonged to somebody, belonged to something. Didn't really belong to them anymore because they obviously weren't around. The capybara obviously doesn't have anybody or anything else. So they all kind of like were alone. The dog had willingly separated itself, but it felt like they all were kind of like the outcast of their group, and that they like found, it's like the Motley Crew, like they're all finding each other.
yeah.
The dog separated itself from the pack.
It did separate
Okay,
itself from the pack.
so talking about packs and groups, the statues, right? There are a bunch of cat statues. I said maybe not the capybara, but every other animal had its group of animals, right?
Mhm.
The dogs, the lemur had a group. multiple groups because I had the pirate lemurs
Right,
that
right.
somehow learned how to wear hats and stuff out of
But
whatever they
lemurs are
found.
smart, so
Yeah, and then I had the lemur central,
yeah.
um, cranes, and we didn't see capybaras, right? It was just the
No,
one.
but it did show up on a boat. It was the one that brought the boat, so it could have hopped a
Right.
boat where it came from its group. We don't know.
So yeah, so it was only one cat, but it was all these statues. So that's what also makes it interesting of what the situation is, because then you had all the antelope or moose or whatever. They kind of didn't look like a real animal, but I'm probably wrong
I think they
at
were
that,
elk. I'm from Montana. I think they
or
were elk.
elk. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe I'm just wrong about that. But yeah, so then there was this interesting relationship. Oh yeah, why did the crane pick up the cat or decide to stand up for the cat? I mean that so my whole point was like, did the crane had seen the different statues of the cat or something around? Did it know the cat had this like importance to it? Or you know why before they all teamed up, the majority of them, the cat had encountered them. At least the encountered the dog,
Mhm.
encountered the crane. The only ones that didn't, well, even the
He
capybara,
encountered the crane.
yeah,
I don't
before
remember.
getting on the boat, I believe, because it was like running away, and then they ran into the crane again, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm pretty sure.
Mhm.
Yeah. Anyway, so it gets trippy. Does a crane, in that sense, like die and go to heaven? Like all cranes go to heaven, but then the cat's like, I have unfinished business, so I come down. Like,
So
I
Yeah,
I
I'd
had a
love to
few
hear you
thoughts
guys'
about
thoughts
that.
on that. Yeah.
I definitely want to hear you guys' thoughts about it. So I was like, are they like, is the cat in like a state of nirvana right now? Like, is he like in his most heightened cat self after going on this journey, this adventure of like life and death and near death, and maybe like miracles back to life, and the trip of 1,000 miracles? Like, what's maybe that's like the nirvana for the cat. That's what I was thinking, right? Like
No,
maybe
the
they
cat
took him
drowned.
to.
The cat drowned a long time ago, and this is just we're in his mind right now. No, I don't know.
I mean, and I also
There
thought
you
that
go.
too. Like, oh, maybe they're going to heaven now. This is it. Like, this is their souls going away into their little, universe. So all those things kind of came to mind. Not exactly sure what happened. I just assumed that was either the crane learned how to fly and got out of there, put his wing back in place, or it passed away.
I thought that the crane died. We went back, I watched it again because I was like, wait, I want to make sure I got everything. But my interpretation was that the crane knew it was dying, and like animals sometimes do, it like went away to die, and
Mhm.
the cat followed it, and the cat realized it was dying, and then that like moment where the crane rises up and the cat rises up with it, it's like watching it go into death, like it's watching it die. So it's not actually like dying with it. I felt like it was a metaphor for like being there, being present at someone's death and witnessing them transition, and knowing that they're transitioning and knowing you can't go with them, but like their bond that had been made. So the bird going up and the cat ultimately staying. That's how I saw that. But I feel like it could be interpreted a lot of different ways. And I went down a Reddit thread where people had some really wild theories.
Okay.
Well, before you go into the wild theories,
I don't need to.
I'm gonna pick it.
That's a theory I like, and that's my theory.
Well,
But yeah,
okay, I do want to hear maybe the wildest one, or just like
I
the
can give you
cuckoo for
one
two
wild
one.
one. Yeah,
Okay, but I I like your idea of kind of seeing it that and acknowledging and being there, because then when the elk come back, right, there was a lot of mirroring from the beginning to kind
right.
of the end, and you're like, oh, what now, right? Like another flood, earthquake, like what? And the cat goes by itself. It goes running, right? And again, the fear thing, fight or flight, fight or flight. Like you said, humans, right? That's the two things, fight or flight.
Mm-hmm.
It goes and it kind of can sense it, and the whale is there, beached whale, and it has realized now. Again, with fear, it's like you fear things that you don't know and end up helping you, right? And one of the things that it feared, which also saved it at least once, if not twice, was the whale, right? On its back, moving it. And there it was also dying, right? I got a fortune cookie once that said, even the greatest of whales is useless in a desert. And I was like, not much of a fortune, but it stuck with me because it's like, yeah, I guess you're true. So the going back with the crane, I'm like, oh wow, yeah, it's definitely has found some sort of nirvana or just understanding of like loss, right? And death with a crane, and then the whale of like, I'm gonna be there for them type of thing. The
Yeah.
empathy, if you will, of like someone that's different from you, yet you can now understand that at first you might have feared them or hated them or whatever, and then you can empathize with their passing.
That whale moment is such a cool moment because I like that whale did help the cat, and it was his presence that was kind of there the whole time. At first you're almost like, is this a monster? Is this a beast?
Yeah.
Like, is it something to be scared of? But then it comes and it helps the cat, and it's there throughout the film. It kind of shows up, and it seems to be this like comforting presence almost. And then at the end, when the whale is seemingly dying, the cat has this moment looking into its eyes, and it's almost like this thing that the cat was afraid of, the flood, is the thing that gave the whale the world. Like the whale was suddenly able to have the world, and the cat's like whole world was drowned. It's just interesting, like seeing that, and it almost is like the cat understands, like taking away the flood, the thing that crushed its reality, brought freedom to this creature.
And it even dislodged them at one point, right? It bumped them and moved the boat from, when they lost the not the oar, but the rudder.
Yeah.
They lost the rudder and they got stuck. And it got them out. And did at the very end, once the whale kind of died, did that become the stream at that point?
Okay, so wait, we should talk about the whale dying, because did you guys see the post credits?
No.
Yeah, just the splash, just the water. Was there
With
another
the whale
one?
coming up at the end?
I didn't watch the post credits.
It's really quick. It's like 10 seconds, but it's so that after the credits, there's the water.
Yeah.
It's like the ocean, and then the whale really quickly comes up. So I took that as like the flood had come back and the whale lived, and we don't know what happened to the other animals. Like they probably died, and that's like the flow of life is like the ocean, the flood coming in and out, the flow of, we don't know how life is going to be. We don't know whatever, but I took it as that. But it's like really quick. I only caught it because I was like fast forwarding after we went back and watched the bird, and then I went fast forward and I got to the end and I was like, oh wait, there's something else. And we watched, and then I was like, oh, the whale comes back. So the whale isn't dead, which we never actually see the whale die. It just, you think it's dying.
But yeah, so I was taking notes, but Stu had it in the background, and I noticed that, and I just saw like kind of waves again, and I was like, oh, that's a nice thing. But I guess I missed the whale.
Right. Yeah.
But also just like you have your family, and then you have your found family, right? Because at the very end, you have like basically the portrait in the water.
Them all standing together, looking in the reflection.
And like kind of like purring and like touching each other, and then even the doggy, with so.
And like they're stronger together.
Yeah.
This movie was, I would say, if I had to sum it up in one word, it would be cute. It was cute as hell. Like not cute in like a diminishing sense. Like this is like it just like it affected me so deeply. But I loved each animal, and I was like, God, like that kitty is so cute, and I'm rooting for it, and I'm
and I had no idea where the movie was going.
no idea.
Once it became kind of fantastical, I was like, oh, and now you got me. Because now, whenever I was like, okay, I get this story, I was like, nope, I guess I didn't.
I was thinking that halfway through, which I try to like always do when I watch movies now. I try to like sort of pause it where I'm at in my brain or whatever and think to myself, do I know how this thing is going to end? Is it obvious yet? You know, and if it's not, I'm like, all right, halfway through the film and I don't know where we're going. This is great.
Feel like I do the same automatically. I feel like most of the movies, I'm like, oh, I know what this is going to happen. I still enjoy a lot of those movies. You know, I'm still I'm still having fun watching them, but I sincerely didn't know where this was going, and I was just like wrapped the entire time. I was like, I think I was literally like close up to my TV doing this, and I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. I just didn't know where it was going. I also just like could not get over how simple the story felt, but how much complexity there was in there. Like there was so much happening. There were so many layers, so many things to think about. It was so beautiful. I loved each character, but I was also like, it's an A to B storyline going from one place to the next.
They felt like paintings. Like the artwork was so like layered, like brush strokes almost, which made it really cool. All right, before going into final thoughts, what was the craziest? You said you had one Reddit crazy moment.
Oh, there was like one theory that I thought was really weird. Like a bunch of them were, I thought, just dumb. But one of them was, I mean, maybe this isn't super out there, but one of them was that, so they thought somebody thought that, you know, those like tower things that they were headed towards.
Yeah.
So somebody was saying they looked like, what's that cosmos, galaxy, nebula, something, I can't remember. But they were like, it kind of looks like that place in the galaxy. And so they were thinking it was that like an asteroid had hit the Earth, and it was a cosmic effect was what was pulling the floods, like was making the water flood. And that that basically it was like a cosmic effect that pulled the bird literally into the cosmos. And I think they were just seeing it really literally, which I guess you could take it that way. I was like, I don't think that the bird was like literally being pulled into the cosmos. I didn't take it that way. So, I mean, it felt very like metaphorical to me based on the way it was animated, but I thought that was a pretty wacky theory.
Nice. All right. Any other comments, questions before we get into final thoughts? Nope. All right. No. Well, it's on me, so I'll go.
Oh wait, I do got one thing before we get into final thoughts.
Yep.
I just want to say that this movie was created on a budget of $3.7 million. Independent film with a lot of moving parts, as you guys could probably see when the title cards first came up. I was like, how many people worked on this movie? My God, like every company in the world.
Criterion Channel also behind it.
Yeah.
Got behind it very early on, right? Because this thing is still in cinemas and it's already got a Criterion label.
Yeah.
So clearly a lot of people chipped in to get this movie to the public. It had a worldwide box office of about $7 million, but it's still in the movie theaters right now. So
I did see a thread or a tweet from the director. He was sharing images from a previous project he made or a previous film. I can't remember what it's called. And it's a similar animation style. It's a lot more like rudimentary, but he's talked about how he made that. It took him 4 years to make that film, and he just took his time with it. And that was like his film school, was making that on his own by himself. And then that doing well in festivals is what got him the permission to make this. I thought that was really cool. Like he just tugged away at it slowly.
Yeah. Well, it's really cool. I saw also that it was completely created and rendered on only on the free and open source software Blender. Like that's
That's
that
awesome.
was it. That was it. And yeah, also what I thought interesting, no names to the animals. They were only known as the animal names. So again, the idea of like not giving human necessary, human qualities or
And there's no star attached to this movie. There's no star to give it, your star power. There's no
Right.
Brad Pitt or somebody voicing an
yeah.
animal to pull the audience in. It's just, yeah.
No. All right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty
So
spectacular.
real quick for me, final thoughts. I really enjoyed it. I definitely this is one to recommend to people that enjoy animated films because it's so captivating. I'm already thinking like, oh, I gotta recommend this to my sister-in-law and even my brother. I'm like, they, yeah, she loves cat. I mean, she has a cat tattoo. Like, so I'm just kind of like animal lovers, capybara lovers, any of that. Um, silent movie people, if you're into that, just like good storytelling. There's yeah, there's very few people that I might like think like I yeah, that's an interesting thing. There's a smaller group of people that I might not recommend to. Right? Maybe like a narrow-minded or like, oh, they don't have they'll be flipping TikTok or Twitter or whatever, not paying attention to the movie because
Mm-hmm.
they get bored, with
Yeah.
no sound, with no actual story. But other than that, it's a fun movie to watch, and even it can go even fully silent, as in like having the movie on and having your own music on or whatever. Just like the image that you see is really nice, and you can just have it in the background. You know, um, it because you aren't missing stuff if you're just popping in and out. It's very easy to jump in wherever. So that's my final thought.
Yeah, I like that last bit. I like the idea of this playing in the background of like parties. This seems
Yeah.
like an interesting movie that could just play in the background with the sound completely off. Just the images are beautiful and
Mm-hmm.
captivating and just nice as a background, really. Um, I really did like this movie. I feel like it flowed to me, and I'm not even kidding because I just learned about this movie, and I was gonna go see it, and I was kind of very reluctant, and I was like, I'll catch it eventually. One day in life, I'll see it. I'm not even pressed to watch it, so I'm really surprised it got picked, and I'm really surprised I liked it as much as I did. I did not expect to like this much. I actually felt like I was going to be a little bored, to be honest with you. I was like, I don't know how this thing is going to keep me from not being bored, but it's terrific. It does all the things correctly. Like I said, I will definitely be watching this again. Who would I recommend it to? I'm really going to recommend this to my little sister. She's an animator. I think she needs to see this. I'm going to like recommend it to her as soon as like we get out of here. I would recommend this to animal lovers, people who just like animated films. Like, if you have the patience for basically any animated film, you like anime, whatever, watch this. You'll be totally into it. It doesn't have any speaking in it, but that's fine. You don't care at all because the communication is so clear between these animals. It's wild. I think I said it again, but I think um, it bears a point to say it one more time. For me, I really did feel like this was a meditation. I feel like I could pull lots of different ideas from this and different thoughts about life. And the movie feels very zen. It feels like this is, and it's called Flow. It feels like a very
Mm-hmm.
zen movie. Like, this is where you're at in life right now. So this is how you got to maneuver. You know, and pray for some good luck and hope for some better days, and maybe you can grab a fish or two on the way up. But yeah, this is a nice movie, man. I would really like to see this in theaters, to be honest with you, because it just with all the water and stuff like that, it just feels like it will be overwhelming sometimes. I bet people got emotional watching this like in theaters and cinemas, to be honest with you.
In like a surround or doubly
Yeah,
kind of, yeah.
I think so. That's my final thought.
Yeah, like yeah, the when they come across all the basically sinking canoes, it's like, oh man, are those all canoes of animals that didn't make it?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry to jump into your final just bring a downer.
Okay, I can go. My final thoughts. I loved this movie so much, and so much more than I thought I was going to. I thought I was going to like it. I thought I would admire it. I thought it would be a good, like, I'd heard it was good. I thought I was like, oh, this is going to be something I'll probably think is cool and artistically I'll probably admire. I didn't know I was going to love it so much or get so lost in the story or so invested in these characters. I didn't know that this would be a movie that I would be like, I definitely will watch again. I want people to watch it. I already texted my sister and I was like, you got to show the kids. I love that it's a movie that I do think like kids could watch or adults could watch and be equally interested and invested in. The animation was stunning. It was, for me, I used to be like an animation kind of geek. I used to love to watch animated movies when I was younger, when I was first kind of dabbling in my cinematic journey. And that hasn't really been a priority for me. And this kind of reignited that love for me to want to watch more animated movies because, like you were saying earlier, it's different. It's different than like Pixar or DreamWorks or something that we're used to seeing all the time, which those are always stunning. I love watching a good Disney movie. I love seeing the animation in those, but this was just so exciting to me to see something that looked so different, so unique, something that I don't see all the time. And it was done so beautifully and so well. Love Moana too. See the shout out from Steve. I loved that. So I was really excited about it. I also wanted to mention the sound design. We all talked about it being a movie with no dialogue, but like the sound design was spectacular. So for people who are interested in sound design, who like good sound design, the sound design really created that world. I felt like the way that you could even hear the grass move, it was just done so well. And it did feel like meditative, like you said, Jason. Like at times it felt like very poetic. So there were just so many elements that pulled me into the story and got me lost in the story and took me on the journey of these characters. And I just love when a movie does that. And so I was really excited about it. And I would definitely recommend it to people who sound design geeks, people who like cats, people who like that video game Stray, which I've never played, but I know it's about like you follow a cat. I feel like they probably love this movie because it's so elevated and it's kind of got some of those elements, but it's elevated. So I feel like there are a lot of people that would really enjoy it. But I do think it's something you have to like pay attention to. Although I think if you're sitting on your phone at the beginning, you'll probably put your phone down because it did suck me in and make me want to watch it from beginning to end. And only being 120 minutes, or an hour and 20 minutes, I was like, I can do this.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I just like to add one thing in between our final thought was this movie probably does make it into my top 10 films of the year list. I'm not done watching everything from the year yet, but this is probably in my top 10. I don't see how this doesn't make it.
Yeah.
No, I don't know where it lands in the top 10, but it's in there for sure. And one last thing. You said that I forgot. Never mind.
Is it sound design?
No, I forget. I remember.
Well, my final thought is when I heard about the movie Flow, I was expecting, I don't know, Channing Tatum and Christina Milian to break dance with each other. Be like a film about, finding connection through dance.
I would probably love that movie.
Well, no, to my surprise, there was this black cat, and I thought it was going to be a black cat that's going to give bad luck to people because that's what people said. But no, this was a very fortunate cat, and it was a very lovely story. And the artwork is very stunning. It's very stunning, and definitely for a person that likes films that are about animals in particular and want to see like more of the realism, because I know back in the 90s we had like a lot of movies of like animals that were talking, but these were like
Homeward Bound.
animated but super realistic. So like, shout out to the incredible people that worked in this movie, and the design and the animation of it all, because it's extremely realistic, and I can only imagine how much work this took. Um, I will recommend this movie definitely to a lot of my lovely girlfriends that have too many cats to be legally called old ladies with cats at this point. Because yeah, there's people I know that have more than seven, and I think that's a crime at that point. And they will love this movie. This movie, you can watch it in regular speed, in slow motion, in like super fast speed, and you will still enjoy it if you have it in the background. I feel. I at one point play, because I also watched it a couple times. I played with the speeds, and it was like, wow, this is smooth, because it's essentially silent ish. Even though when the cat was meowing, I was screaming for the cat. I was like, please, no, no. They got me with the sounds. They are real. Anyway, those are my final thoughts.
Very
All
cool.
right.
So, on that note, I just want to know, Steve, what do you have for us next week?
Next week, oh my, I am so happy that you asked me, because if you recall, it was your turn the week before Dino. And this
That's true.
time was Dino's turn. So now, of course, because we live in a man's world now, no, that's a very bad way to phrase it. But it's my turn. Yes, it is mine. And we're going. It was actually Michaela's, but she turned it down. So it's my turn.
I can't. I'm
Okay.
not here next week, but I
Yeah,
want to go the
Oh,
next time. I have a pick for you guys that you guys are gonna like.
it's all
Awesome.
good.
Cinemansplaining.
It's all good. We are going to be watching a movie from back in the day, one of my favorite comedians. Then later turned one of my favorite actors later. Now I don't know where I stand, because I don't really watch a lot of this stuff anymore. But
Jim Carrey.
still a really good, incredible comedian, really good
Mhm.
actor. The one and only Jim Carrey.
Oh, Jim Carrey.
Hey!
I feel we haven't reviewed anything Jim Carrey in the cinema club in the 5 years we had a cinema
Oh
club.
my God,
We
which
haven't
one
reviewed
is it? That's so
nothing
good.
Jim Carrey. So which movie is going to be? It is the classic Dumb and Dumber. No, I'm kidding. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Nice.
I can't believe I'm gonna miss this one. You guys.
We'll
This
Oh, how
postpone
was
it to
exciting.
the week
during
after.
during my just a quick backstory. During my teenage years, that I was such a lover boy, and I used to watch many movies in repeat. One that I believe we reviewed in Cinema Club, The Notebook. Uh and this was another one that I used to watch, and I used to love and cry like a little baby.
Well,
Have
I'm
you guys seen
ashamed
this?
to I'm ashamed to say I've never seen this one.
Oh, wow.
Damn. Now I'm really sad. I'm not gonna be here next week.
Yeah. I've
Wow.
seen it when it
Uh,
first came out. Okay, well, we'll talk about the next week, but I have seen
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
But it's
yeah.
been a
Oh
long
my
time.
God.
I
I'm
look
so bummed
forward
I'm
to
gonna miss this
reviewing
one.
this. It's been so long.
I'm gonna
I'm
watch it
ashamed.
again just in honor of you guys.
Awesome.
All right.
I'll be here.
so for Michaela, El Dondino, Jason Eccles, and me, Steve that TV. We'll catch you next week. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye. Bye bye.